Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Pastor Mary. I forgot to put a note up, but I did mention at church we would have devotions this week, Tuesday and Thursday. I didn't do, sorry. I said I wasn't going to be doing them last Tuesday. Somebody's already joined me. Good evening, whoever that may be. Cheryl, my good friend Cheryl from Illinois. How are you? I'm glad you're on here. How are you doing at church? I hope well. We had a good day. It was our first time in 2 years to have centering prayer. Centering prayer is a spiritual practice that calls us to be in silence with God. We do about 20 minutes. Hey, Larry, good evening. And we had a nice turnout, and I think we had a great centering prayer. We're reading the book Faith After Doubt by Brian McLaren, and we got through, there's a preface and an introduction. We read it together, so, and we got through the preface, so I think, and then we're going to read the introduction and then talk about it next week. So, but it was very nice to be together, and then I went to Theology on Tap, which is led by Gary Larson, reading a wonderful book on my mind. I'll think of her. Shoot. We talked 13th century mystic. Larry will probably put it up. Wow. I'm sure you hit planning hard today. Yeah. Well, I'm getting everything in for Holy Week on Thursday. So it's coming 2 weeks. 2 weeks is Holy Week, and we will be in April on Friday, and it's just moving along. So it's pretty amazing. So anyway, Theology on Tap was great, and came home and I took a nap. I don't take a nap every day, but I don't know why I was tired. So anyway, I'm doing good. I'm glad you all are on here. It's a beautiful night. Gonna go out and walk in a little while. But I'm glad to be with you, and I said that this week I was going to read some of the introduction in a book called Jesus, A Pilgrimage by James Martin. He's a Jesuit, S.J., the Society of Jesuits. I really like James Martin. He is quite a writer. I think he used to be the editor of, I think it's called the Catholic Reporter, but I've heard him speak on Being. It's a NPR show, wonderful show. Krista Tippett, excellent. She interviews a number of people across diverse backgrounds on their being and life and spirituality, and it's just a great show. And I heard him on there. It was excellent. And I follow him on Instagram, and I have started his book. It's about him going to Israel and encountering the places where Jesus was. And since I've never been there, I know you said your pastor just went there, but I have not been. It's on my bucket list, still hoping to get to go. Won't be this year, won't be probably next year. Next year is my family Holy Land, Ireland. That's the hope, is to get to Ireland next year. So anyway, hopefully in a few years. My brother Tim has been, a number of pastor friends have been, other people I know have been. I know it's amazing. It's wonderful, and I really hope that I will get there soon. Hey, Sharon, good evening. I'm glad you're on here. So I just wanted to read some from the introduction, and then I will share a little bit more. So he talks about his experience, goes with a friend to Israel, and about experiencing these different places that Jesus was to have been, places that are, have been believed where different things happen with Jesus. And so I'll share a little bit of that tomorrow night. But tonight I want to share what he wrote about Jesus. It's really, really, really good. So, whoa. All right, kitty cat. My cat is over here getting on the table. Get down, please. Get down, Miss Okay, Papa is out of the room, and so I'm gonna do things. This is my sweet girl. Yes, she's a sweet girl, but she's always into stuff. Sam was home today. Well, he had school online because his teacher broke his ankle, and he was downstairs, and the cat had jumped up onto, we have a center area, and she had jumped up on it and looked like she had bit into a pepper. So we're waiting to see how she does, if she has any problems from it. All right, there we go. Okay, so I wanted to read you a little bit about what he talks about with Jesus that I find very interesting as he was getting ready to go, and as he was thinking about going. He says, who is Jesus? Why another book on this first century Jewish man? Why have I spent years studying the life of an itinerant preacher from a backwater town? Why did I spend 2 weeks traipsing around Israel under the broiling sun to see places where a former carpenter lived and sites that he may or may not have visited? You know how that happens. Things get attributed to you, especially somebody like Jesus. Moreover, why have I committed my life to Jesus? The answers turn on the question of who I believe Jesus is, so it's fair to tell you before we begin our pilgrimage. So then he says his classic theological statement is Jesus Christ is fully human and fully divine. This is one of the first things that Christians learn about their faith, but what does it mean? To begin with, Jesus of Nazareth, the person who walked the landscape of first century Palestine, wasn't God pretending to be human. He was a flesh and blood, real life, honest to God man who experienced everything that human beings do. Jesus was born and lived and died like any human being. The child called Yeshua entered the world as helpless as any newborn and just as dependent on his parents. He needed to be nursed, held, birthed, and changed. As a boy growing up in the minuscule town of Nazareth, Jesus skinned his knees on the rocky ground, bumped his head on doorways, and pricked his finger on thorns. He watched the sun rise and set over the Galilean countryside, wondering how far away the moon was, and asked why the stars twinkled. Jesus had a body like yours and mine, which means that he ate, drank, and slept. He experienced sexual longings and urgings. The adult Jesus felt joy and sadness, laughing at things that struck him as funny, and weeping during times of loss. As a fully human being with full human emotions, he felt both frustration and enthusiasm. He grew weary at the end of a long day and fell ill from time to time. He pulled muscles, felt sick to his stomach, and maybe sprained an ankle or two. Like all of us, he sweated and sneezed and scratched. You know, you never think about, you have to really, we know that about Jesus, but I really like how he writes it. I like how he really makes makes you more aware of Jesus as a human being. He says, everything proper to the human being except sin, Jesus experienced. Jesus' humanity, he says, is a stumbling block for many people, including a few Christians. Incidents in the Gospels show that Jesus displaying intense and even unattractive human emotions can unsettle those who prefer to focus on his divinity. At one point in the Gospel of Mark, he speaks sharply to a woman who asked him to heal her daughter. The woman is not Jewish, and as a result, Jesus seems to dismiss her with a callous comment. It's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. This is a stinging rebuke no matter what the context. When the woman responds that even the dogs get crumbs from the table, Jesus softens and he heals her daughter. Why did Jesus speak so sharply? Was it because he was visiting what Mark calls the region of Tyre, a non-Jewish area, where he was presumably not expected to perform any miracles? If so, why didn't he respond to the woman more gently, rather than using a term that was seen in his day as highly insulting? Was Jesus testing her faith, challenging her to believe? If so, it's a harsh way of doing so, at odds with the compassionate Jesus whom many of us expect to meet in the Gospels. Perhaps, however, Jesus needed to learn something from the woman's persistence. His ministry extended to everyone, not just Jews. Or maybe he was just tired. A few lines earlier in the Gospel, Mark tells us, he entered a house and didn't want anyone to know he was there. Perhaps his current remark indicates physical weariness. Whatever the case, and we'll never know for sure, both possibilities, He is learning, he is tired, shows Jesus' humanity on full display. Fully human and fully divine means that Jesus of Nazareth wasn't just a great guy, an inspiring teacher, and a holy man. Moreover, the charismatic carpenter wasn't merely a clever storyteller, a compassionate healer, or a courageous prophet. Jesus is divine, far more than Peter could comprehend, even while identifying him as the Messiah. Jesus performed astonishing deeds, which the gospel writes, calling either works of powers or signs. Today we call them miracles. Time and again, the Gospels report that Jesus' followers, no matter how long they had been with him, are amazed and astonished by what he does. Even his detractors take note of his miracles, as when they castigate him for healing a man on the Sabbath. The miracles are an essential part of the story of Jesus, as are other signs of his divinity. So is the resurrection. If Jesus' humanity is a stumbling block for many, his divinity is even more so. Despite the proportion of the Gospels that focus on his works of power, many want to confine his identity to that of a wise teacher. But humanity and divinity are both part of Jesus' story. Omit one or another, scissor out the uncomfortable parts like Thomas Jefferson did, and it's not Jesus we're talking about any longer. It's our own creation. The traditional belief about Jesus' simultaneous humanity and divinity may raise as many questions as it answers. Fully human and fully divine is, to use a loaded word, a mystery. And then he tells what this book is about. This book will explore the questions, but it will not set forth any new theological propositions. For one thing, I believe in the traditional Christian understanding of Jesus Christ. For another, I'm not a theology professor. So he goes on and says, if you want that, there are other people who can do a better job than he can. So he says, so what is this book? It is a look at Jesus as he appears in the Gospels through the lens of my education, experience, prayer, and most recently, a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, and through the lens of faith. And then he goes on and talks a little bit about knowing a little Greek, and then also talks about historical Jesus, which some of you I know have heard of, some of you may not. But he says, in historical Jesus studies, scholars try to explain as much as we can know about the life and times of Jesus of Nazareth. Books and articles about the historical Jesus focus on topics like religious customs in first century Jewish culture in Palestine, the socioeconomic realities of living under Roman rule, and the ways that a carpenter would sustain his family in a small village in Galilee. Such research helps us better understand Jesus within the context of his own time. One quick example. In one of his parables, Jesus spins the compelling tale of a steward who is given care of his master's talents. If you know that a talent was a huge sum of money, equivalent to 15 years of wages for a day laborer, you'll have a better understanding of Jesus' reason for using that term in his story. Historical Jesus scholars use every tool available: our understanding of first century culture, our knowledge of the local languages, even archaeological finds in the region, to understand his life and his times. Such studies are closely aligned with what is called a Christology from below, an attempt to understand Jesus by beginning with his humanity. So then he says, the historical Jesus scholar doing theology from below might ask questions like this. What were Jewish burial practices at the time? Is there a religious significance to the 2-day period? Did any customs prevent Jesus from going immediately to the tomb? What was the role of women in Jewish burial rites? This is talking about the story of the raising of Lazarus. And did any Jewish traditions of the time incorporate the idea of resurrections? Answers to these questions help us to understand the story more fully, and they shed light on what Jesus did and said in Bethany on that day. Someone starting from the vantage point of the Christ of faith and doing a theology from above might pose slightly different questions. What does the raising of Lazarus tell us about how divine power is at work in Jesus? How do Jesus' action at the tomb underline his words? How does the idea of Jesus as life show itself in this story? In what ways does the raising of Lazarus foreshadow Jesus' own resurrection? And what does the story of Lazarus say about our response to God's voice in our lives today? Both sets of questions are important, and if we lose sight of either perspective, we risk turning Jesus either into God pretending to be a man or a man pretending to be God. The two approaches are complementary, not contradictory. To fully meet Jesus Christ, believers need both to understand the Jewish Jesus of history, the man who walked the earth, and to encounter the Christ of faith, the one who rose from the dead. Well, I really love that. I really, really love that. And that's what he's trying to get to in this book. He says, Jesus is always human and divine, whether he is building their table or healing the sick. His two natures are inseparable, united in one person at all times. There are also questions about the fully human, fully divine person that we cannot answer. What went on inside Jesus' mind? Oh, I love that one. How does his humanity cooperate with his divinity and vice versa? To what extent was the human person conscious of his divinity? These questions, like so much about Jesus, must remain a mystery. But although Jesus' identity as the fully human Son of God remains a mystery, it is a beautiful mystery, the most beautiful one I know, and well worth pondering. So that's what I'm going to stop. I do want to say, though, the last thing I want to read is, as he did it, he talks about Ignatian contemplation, which encourages people to put themselves in the story in the Bible. So, for example, he says if you're praying about Jesus and his disciples caught in a boat during a storm on the Sea of Galilee, you would try to imagine yourself on board with the disciples and ask yourself several questions as a way of trying to place yourself in the scene. You might ask, what do you see? How many disciples are in the boat? What is the expression on their faces? How rough is the sea? What do you hear? The howling wind, the fishing tackle shifting about in the boat? What do you smell? You're in a fishing boat, so you might smell residues from the day's catch. What do you feel? Homespun clothes were probably heavy when soaked by storm-driven water. And what do you taste? Maybe the spray on your lips. With such imaginative techniques, you let the gospel passage play out in your mind's eye, and then you notice your reactions. Ignatian contemplation doesn't require any special spiritual talents, nor does it require you to believe that every single detail of the narrative is accurate. As you will see, he says, some gospel accounts of the same events disagree, which they definitely do. It merely asks you to enter into Bible stories imaginatively and to accept that God can work through your imagination to help you see things in fresh ways. Jesus himself asked people to use their imaginations when he offered them his parables. When someone asked, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus responded not with the definition, but with the story of the Good Samaritan, in effect saying to his listeners, imagine something like this happening. So I love that. And he says when he discusses the life of Jesus in this book, it'll be clear what comes from the Gospels, the Christian tradition, and historical research, and what comes from scholarly speculation and his own personal prayer. He says, I'll be clear about what is speculative and what is not. So I will share I like that introduction a lot. I love those questions. At different times, hey, Laura, good evening. At times when I've done sermons, especially sometimes in Holy Week or Christmas time, I will try to imagine myself in that story and what it was like to be there, and then share that with people and invite people into the story, because I love that. I think that the story comes more alive to us when we imagine that we ourselves are on the road with Jesus to Emmaus, or when we imagine that we are there when he does one of his miracles and we are in the crowd, or we hear him when he does the Beatitudes and he shares those. Imagining being at the Last Supper. Can you imagine what it must have been like to be at that meal? And then to realize later how glorious and spectacular, and what an amazing evening it was, that last evening with Jesus before he died. So anyway, we'll be taking a little pilgrimage ourselves with some of Father James Martin's sharings, and I will share over the next few weeks on Thursday and Tuesday. I haven't decided. I know during Holy Week I won't be doing Thursday because we will be broadcasting the service on that Thursday. And I probably will do devotions on the Tuesday. So, but next week, I'll do Tuesday and Thursday nights, and we will have Friday night fun the next 2 weeks as well. So, and then comes Holy Week, Palm Sunday and Holy Week. So, a couple announcements for those who watch this. We got a call from Moreland Elementary School, which we are a partner with, trying to, we are involved. We support them with meals for kids who need food on weekends with Backpack for Kids. And we've done other things for them over the years. And we got a call from the school today asking if anyone wanted to give a small gift card for the teachers. They have a special Easter egg hunt for the teachers. And so if you want to pick up a $5 or $10 gift card to a local restaurant or grocery store that you can bring with you this Sunday, Janet Kindred will collect those and drop them off at the school because they're going to be doing it early next week. So if you're willing to be a part of that, that would be great. And then the other thing we're doing in April is our bucket change will be going for Moreland Elementary. I'm trying to see if we can buy some smaller Easter baskets for the kids who receive the Backpack for Kids, for them to have an Easter basket for Easter, which again is only 2 weeks away, but we'll make it work. And so we'll use funds we get from that to help pay for that from the bucket change. And then if we have any left over, I will get drinks and snacks or ask people if they want to give, and we will later in April or early May, we will do a thank you again to all the Moreland staff. I try to include everybody because everybody on a school staff is really important. So just letting you know that we're really trying to lift up Moreland Elementary. But again, if you want to pick up a little gift card, you don't have to, but if you want to, bring it with you Sunday or drop it by the office this week. But Janet will be taking it next Monday to them. So just wanted to share that. Also, prayers are asked for Connie Kloppenstein and Charlie. Charlie's having a lot of health issues, and we just want to pray for them and just ask that there will be a way to get answers and clarity for Charlie's health and get help for him to hopefully get him on a better path of feeling better. So please, we ask for prayers to lift them up. We want to keep praying for Ukraine, and I just pray that these peace talks will work and that the bombing will stop. And just, I was watching a little bit of the news before I had dinner tonight, and they had a man who was a photographer of the women and children who have left Ukraine, and they're just such moving pictures. And it just reminds me maybe a little bit of what our, grandparents or great-grandparents saw when they lived through the time of World War II. And just the horrendous, war is just so terrible. And it only takes one person, as we know in this, to disrupt people's lives, to have people murdered, to have people starved to death. It's just a horrible thing. And we also want to pray. I need to get the exact country, but there's several countries in Africa where people are literally starving. There's just such difficult times right now. And I think we also want to lift up Afghanistan, and especially the girls and the women in Afghanistan. It's just heartbreaking what is happening there to them. And I just pray for better days to be ahead, especially for the women and for the girls in Afghanistan. I can't imagine what life would be like if that was me. I just can't imagine. And my heart breaks for so many of them who have known a better life, and now girls won't be able to go to school who are older, and it's just upsetting to see what's happening there. So I don't know of other prayers that I could think of right now. Just prayers for our kids that are in school, all that they deal with, and just for those who are struggling, anybody who's struggling, that they have a sense that they are loved, that they are cared for, and that they can find help to help them to live another day, especially those who are struggling with the possibility of suicide. We just pray for them and ask God to watch over and bless them. And tomorrow's my mom's birthday. I just looked at the calendar. I had been thinking about it. But tomorrow's my mom's birthday. I believe she would have been 95 or 6. I'll have to check. I'll know tomorrow. So we will have worship online tomorrow night with communion. If you can join us, we'll have dinner at 5:45, soup and sandwiches, and then we will have worship at 6:30. We will be online as well as in person. It will be a communion service, so we invite you, those of you who are close by, to come and to join us. And Thursday night I'll be back with devotions, and Friday night we'll have Friday Night Fun, both at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's it for tonight. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I know a number of you will be watching it later, so always, if you can, put up a note so I know you were here. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful to have this time to be with you. And next time I'll be sharing more from Jesus of Pilgrimage. If you have any prayer requests, please let me know. And I pray that you have a great night. And you're welcome, Larry. And that you will have good rest and a great day tomorrow. And now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thanks. Everybody take care. Keep sharing God's love. Good night.